Welcome back, Blake Cousins. I wanted to share with you an exclusive 10-minute cut of the 1st Earth Battalion. If you like what you see within the first 10 minutes, the entire full-length documentary is available now on all streaming services. The links are below in the description. Now enjoy the first 10-minute cut exclusive right here on Third Phase of Moon, the 1st Earth Battalion. In the mid-1990s is when the U.S. government declassified their remote viewing project.
I was in the military unit for remote viewing.
What I do know is the Soviets have remote viewers.
U.S. Intelligence and Security Command recruited psychic spying.
So I taught my platoon to be totally stealthy.
A top-secret task force implemented in Vietnam, known as the 1st Earth Battalion.
Then I began to milk out all their paranormal skills.
Is there a secret paranormal psychic war between the United States, Russia, and China?
The issue of whether other countries like China would be using this to gather intellectual information from us and other countries is a real possibility.
The downfalls of a secret spy program.
General Stubblebine, he took me into the commander's office, got up in my face scowling. "Did you kill my computers with your mind?"
The real men behind the men who stare at goats.
We're being taught to believe there's fear, dangerous people, and it's all designed for us to get off our asses.
What are the implications if our governments have no secrets to hide?
Imagine a world where there's no need for secrets. That would be a true paradigm shift.
In this special presentation, we'll be speaking with the top remote viewers in regards to the origin of remote viewing, where it is today, and what the future holds. The secret spy program, the men who weren't even there. The 1st Earth Battalion. Lieutenant Colonel Channon created the Evolutionary Tactics Field Manual. Its goal was a non-lethal and peaceful solutions to potentially change the shape of war as we know it and save lives in the process. He was known for his ability to imagine and illustrate the future battlefield and its advanced applications. Channon is portrayed by actor Jeff Bridges in his role as character Bill the Django. How accurate really was the film The Men Who Stare at Goats? Was the 1st Battalion a secret paranormal force in the U.S. military? Is Jim Channon still working for the U.S. military or the CIA? These are some of the questions I wanted to find out. My name is Blake Cousins. I run a large YouTube channel in regards to the UFO and alien phenomenon. I consider myself a distributor of information to the public. With over 8 years of research into military programs, it's when I found out that Jim Channon lives on the Big Island of Hawaii. That's where I live. I decided to try and meet the man himself. I got the word. I had 3 hours to meet with Jim at his dwelling, located just 45 miles from where I live. So I called my production team, along with my twin brother Brent, and headed to the Kohala Coast. Destination, Artesia. Now I finally get the chance to meet the man himself, Jim Channon. I had many questions that I wanted to ask, so we got to it right away.
So a couple of things happened along the way. One of them is I wrote Evolutionary Tactics, a field manual to bring out all the unknown intelligences in soldiers. It was coming out at the time of the Whole Earth Catalog, which you could pass through, and the Army officers were passing through this Evolutionary Tactics manual. So here I break in a little bit to a mythology format. And beside that, for instance, I wake up one day and the phone rings and they say, "Mr. Channon, we want to make a movie about your field manual. And it's called Men Who Stare at Goats." And after I saw the script And because I had worked in Hollywood before, I know these guys can't make a movie that's all straight. So I'm going to have to tolerate, 50% sight gags, and the rest of it. Jeff Bridges is going to play me. Hallelujah.
We have to dream a new America that no longer has an exploitative.
The Men Who Stare at Goats was inspired by John Ronson's nonfiction bestseller. The New Earth Army is changing the way wars are fought. A legion of warrior monks with unparalleled psychic powers can read the enemy's thoughts, pass through solid walls, and even kill a goat by simply staring at it. In this quirky, dark comedy inspired by a real-life story, you can hardly believe it's actually true. I wanted to get down to the bottom of what the true Jim Channon is all about, and the role by Jeff Bridges, Bill the Django. Jim insisted on giving me a tour of Artesia, which is a mini eco-village dotted with a few exotic small buildings.
In the amphitheater, we have 20 feet of topsoil, so you're able to go down and create this beautiful
Jim also
amphitheater.
practices what he preaches, aiming for full sustainability and implementing permaculture, biodynamic gardening, ancient land practices, and social architecture to make the land not only self-sustaining,
So here then,
but a heavenly
we
experience.
come out of this amphitheater with sort of microcultures, small plants, lots of rocks, the way the Hawaiians used to
Jim's
do them.
first year as lieutenant colonel in Vietnam, he began to flesh out the early beginnings of the 1st Earth Battalion and its clairvoyant applications on the
Go into
battlefield.
the Army, I see what happens in an emotional situation in a completely conflicted set of ethics, and at the same time I'm learning to sit in a deep forest for most of the time. So I became fundamentally welded to nature there, and then welded to the way we had to move through the jungle to find these so-called Viet Cong and search and destroy them. At the same time, so I taught my platoon to be totally stealthy. Then I began to milk out all their paranormal skills, and I had a whole set of sentient intelligences working with me. So I came home a year later with all but one of my guys, and we never had to kill an innocent villager.
When did the psychic phenomenon known as remote viewing begin? And who started it? The late Ingo Swann was an acclaimed psychic, artist, and author for being the co-creator of remote viewing, and specifically the Stargate Project. The Stargate Project was the code name for a secret Army unit established in 1978 at Fort Meade, Maryland by the Defense Intelligence Agency to investigate the potential for the psychic phenomenon in the military and domestic intelligence applications. Swann helped develop the process of remote viewing at the Stanford Research Institute, experiments that caught the attention of the Central Intelligence Agency, which was developed and tested with CIA funding. He is commonly credited with proposing the idea of controlled remote viewing, a process in which viewers would view a location given nothing but its geographical coordinates. For the past 30 years, the United States government has secretly trained a select corps of military personnel in the art of remote viewing, the psychic ability to perceive the thoughts of experiences of the others through the power of the human mind. Now, Lynn Buchanan, a world-renowned expert on remote viewing and its potential. He resides in Alamogordo, New Mexico. He was assigned nearly a decade to a clandestine U.S. Army intelligence group. Buchanan trained military personnel who utilizes the inherent psychic abilities as a data collection tool during the Iran hostage crisis and the Chernobyl disaster, including the Gulf War.
Back in the early 80s, I was a sergeant first class in the Army working for the intelligence command. I was in Augsburg, Germany, and an incident happened, parts of which are still classified, so I don't usually talk about it. It cost the U.S. government millions in computers. Commanding General Bert Stubblebine of the U.S. Intelligence and Security Command came and got me, took me back to D.C. and wanted to form a unit that would do the same to enemy computers.
General Bert Stubblebine has an impressive career, including being credited with the redesigning of the intelligence structure of the entire U.S. Army. This was apparently somehow accomplished without the man ever becoming aware of a 25-year-old CIA mind control effort that exploits thousands of unlisted personnel at locations, including the Army's Edgewood Arsenal. Stubblebine claims he was never into the mind operations program. However, he now believes mind control projects continued after the Congress ordered them halted in the 1970s.
Congress said that smote of mind control, and they wouldn't do it because they had been caught in the 60s doing mind control on U.S. citizens. They really didn't want to have anything to do with anything like it again. He took me out to Fort Meade to this unit that had been doing something called controlled remote viewing. I had never heard of that before. Didn't know what it was, but he just put me in that unit and said, "Here, you're going to learn to be a psychic." And you know, in the military, a general tells you that, yes, sir, I'll do it.
I hope you enjoyed the first 10 minutes of the 1st Earth Battalion. Here are a couple trailers that you could watch right now, and if you like what you see, you could watch the entire film, The 1st Earth Battalion, available on all streaming services, Amazon, iTunes. The link is below. Now take a look at these trailers.
I became fundamentally welded to nature there, and then welded to the way we had to move through the jungle to find these so-called Viet Cong. So I taught my platoon to be totally stealthy. Then I began to milk out all their paranormal skills. Mr. Channon, we want to make a movie about your field manual. It's called Men Who Stare at Goats. Jeff Bridges is going to play me. Hallelujah.
They started handing me pictures that were sealed in envelopes and saying, without opening the envelope, describe the picture. I followed the steps they had taught me, and it worked.
Imagine one person has got this amazing ability to project themselves somewhere into the enemy territory, read the general's battle plan, come back. 12 people do way better than one person. And they do it by layers.
Because it was a black unit that didn't exist, I officially didn't exist, it's the most interesting job I've ever had.
Any country would be using this to gather intellectual information from us.
It would be really dumb of the government not to have an ongoing project.
When we accept the reality of the capabilities of consciousness, we will be much better for it because the universe works that way.
I predicted the Chernobyl meltdown 3 days before it happened. And I told them it was going to happen. Described the way it did happen. And nothing was done about it. I was in the military unit for remote viewing because it was a black unit that didn't exist. I officially didn't exist. He took me into the commander's office, got up in my face scowling. "Did you kill my computers with your mind?" Commanding General Bert Stubblebine came and got me, took me back to DC and wanted to form a unit that would do the same to enemy computers.
319 days of search and destroy. I lost one soldier, and I never shot an innocent civilian. So I taught my platoon to be totally stealthy. Paranormal soldier has more range to discover what's out there, and there are a lot of tools for that.
It's a step-by-step process. Back when they started giving me pictures in envelopes, there's no way I could have told you what was in those envelopes. But I followed the steps they had taught me, and it worked.
You've just delved into the tip of the iceberg behind the 1st Earth Battalion and the implications behind the secret remote viewing project. What you'll find out in the 1st Earth Battalion is insight from specialists from around the world and people who operated within the system, including Jim Channon's last moments of his life before he passes away. He sheds insight into the secret program like never before. The links are below in the description. The 1st Earth Battalion.